Good morning, Griffins. La Cocina de la Isla was being threatened by a developer. The Zamora family decided to respond by doing a little extra for the patrons that came to the restaurant, but Arturo isn't sure that's enough of a response. Let's see. Page 111 at the beginning of chapter 13. We spent the next week on high alert. Everyone worked harder to make the best possible impression on guests. I washed dishes over and over, and Martine yelled at me a couple of times because I was taking too long to move the dish racks through El Monstruo. It felt like guests were really responding to our extra level of service. We sent out free goat cheese croquettes with fresh fig jam to every person who came in to eat. My mom instructed the servers to say it was a thank you from Abuela. Brian prepared fresh mint juice and poured it into these amazing ceramic jars that said agua in cursive on them. Every table got a jar of fresh mint juice. It was all hands on deck and the restaurant was buzzing. Abuela was the only one missing. My mom, Aunt Judy, and Uncle Carlos insisted she stay home so she could take her medicine and rest, but that meant we all had to try to fill the dining room with Abuela's essence, the thing our customers loved more than her cooking. We had more specials, extended lunch menus into the night, something that a few of our regulars had asked for in the past. Commissioner Garcia finally came back to the restaurant and was especially pleased when he heard he could eat his favorite Cuban sandwich for dinner also. As the week went on, we felt really good about the upcoming vote. Then everything exploded on Friday morning. Aunt Judy was in a total panic. She paced up and down the restaurant, a newspaper in her hand, ignoring all the guests waiting to be seated for lunch. Look at this! Look at this! Aunt Judy practically crammed the Tropical Tribune into my mom's face. My mom's eyes bounced left to right as she read, and after a minute, her eyes stopped cold on Aunt Judy's face. In that moment, you could tell she was freaked out. That expression was quickly replaced by what looked like totally fake calm. Judy, right now you need to do your job and not get hysterical. Hysterical! Yes, Tootie, hysterical. Take control and go do your job. We're going to figure this out after lunch. Keep it together. I need my sister to be strong, okay? Tootie nodded quietly. It was the first time in my life that I didn't see Aunt Tootie make a face at my mom when she told her to do something. Aunt Judy went back to the hostess stand to greet a guest. Hi, I'm so sorry for the wait. Come, let me get you the perfect table. Aunt Judy grabbed two menus and walked a couple I didn't recognize over to a table by the window. They looked at La Cocina like it was the first time they'd ever been there. Maybe they had just moved into the neighborhood? Aunt Judy returned to the hostess stand and took out her phone, texting a million miles an hour. Her lips were pressed tightly together as she stared at her screen. When the door opened, she looked up and the huge smile returned to her face and she seated another guest. Aunt Judy really was trying her best to be strong, but why did my mom need that? My mom had already disappeared into her office, leaving the newspaper behind at the bar. I thought the coast was clear when I grabbed it, but Martine shot me a dirty look and barked at me to get back to work. I quickly scanned the page. There wasn't an article, just what looked like a half-page ad. People Place celebrates the community with El Festival de las Estrellas. Free food, dancing, and gifts for residents. Just the first of many community events courtesy of People Place, Wilfredo Pipo Land Holdings, LLC. Saturday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the corner of Main Street. Nos vemos. Wilfredo Pipo is throwing a festival to promote People Place, I said, showing Martine. The city votes in 2 weeks. Martine was quiet for a moment before throwing the paper into the garbage and yelling at me to get back to work. I fastened my apron angrily. Working with Martine was like trying to corral a stubborn water buffalo. Impossible. He checked his phone and must have seen the million messages Tootie had sent to the group chat about the festival because his face suddenly scrunched up and he kicked over the garbage can. He said Wilfredo's name and then a really bad word I can't repeat. This was going to be a fun shift. My head pounded as I hung up my apron. As it turns out, when Martine was truly mad, everything I'd seen up to that point was him being cheery. He liked to blast death metal in the kitchen. I had a clear shot to the front door and bolted before anyone could stop me to talk. That was when my mom appeared and blocked my path to freedom. Come with me, she said, taking off her chef's coat and La Cocina de la Isla baseball cap. Where are we going? To Wilfredo People's office. He's having a catered lunch for the local businesses. Were we invited? I asked, following my mom outside. No, she said, moving quickly from the back alley to Main Street. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and followed her. Banners hung from the ceiling at Wilfredo's office, and people swatted playfully at gold and silver balloons tied to their chairs. I scanned the room for the model of the town, but it was replaced with a photoshopped image on the wall of Pipo Place. The model of the town isn't here anymore, I said. It used to be by the window. Dulce Dominguez, the lady who owned 2 scoops, munched on a crostini that looked like it had red caviar on it. Caviar is fish eggs. It's a delicacy. Mr. Michaels suspiciously eyed a meatball and decided he wouldn't try it. Chuchi Flores, who owned the boutique clothing shop down the block, sipped on sparkling red juice while she spoke excitedly with Estelle Anderson, who owned the antique store next to Chuchi's. The festival should bring lots of people this weekend, said Estelle. I told my staff to be ready. It's delightful for the community, said Chuchi, taking a long sip from her champagne flute. And for the local businesses, said Wilfredo Pipo. He emerged from behind a door wearing a bright blue suit with a pink shirt and sunglasses. Oh, it's La Cocina's mother and son. How nice of you to stop by our little gathering. Wilfredo smiled brightly as he walked towards us. We didn't seem to get an invitation, my mom said, fake smiling. Funny, it was for all the local businesses in the neighborhood. I'll have my assistant look into it. Well, we're here now, my mom said. I hope the restaurant is able to run without its star chef. Wilfredo made a point of talking loudly so everyone heard him. The restaurant runs perfectly well even when I'm not there, my mom said, not taking her eyes off Wilfredo. Excellent, Wilfredo said, handing my mom a champagne flute. Then let's toast to new beginnings. My mom took the flute and the other business owners watched carefully. She smiled and raised her glass high. To the businesses of this community, she said, thank you for making Canal Grove what it is. Hear, hear, declared Mr. Michaels, and to La Cocina for being the foundation. Soon the rest of the room followed. Wilfredo raised his glass and quickly took a gulp of his drink. Let's have the raffle drawing. We're giving away an all-expenses paid weekend getaway to the Caribbean for 2. He moved around the room holding a bowl full of business cards. Actually, why don't I pick 2 different winners, then 4 of you can go. Wilfredo didn't wait for anyone to respond. He dug his hand inside and pulled out the first business card. Chuchi Flores! Chuchi's jaw dropped while Estelle clapped excitedly. Everyone grew anxious and excited as Wilfredo scanned the room. He looked at my mom and handed the bowl to her. Do you want to pick the next winner, chef? He asked. Enrique Somayo, the artist who owned a gallery close to La Cocina, approached my mom. Don't worry, Cari, he said. You are part of this community like we all are. Exactly, Wilfredo said as he extended the bowl. It's all in good fun. My mom hesitated. Don't do it, Mom, I said. Remember why we're here, the festival. How did you get festival approval on such short notice? My mom asked, pushing the bowl away. Commissioner Garcia is just the nicest man. He loves golf as much as I do. My mom gave Wilfredo the most intense look, but he didn't seem fazed. In fact, he smiled brighter. His assistant popped up next to him and took pictures with his phone, furiously typing after each picture. Claudio is my assistant extraordinaire, he said. He is posting pictures of all our events. Here, let's take a selfie. Before my mom could react, Wilfredo put his arm around her and took a photo. He handed the phone back to his assistant. The caption should read, Chef Caridad and Wilfredo at the local business luncheon for Pipo Place. #working together. Claudio typed and posted the picture. then left to take one of Chuchi in front of the banner with the raffle information. My mom looked over to me and motioned for us to leave. Come on, she said. Well, at least throw your business card in there, Chef, Wilfredo said. No, thank you, she replied. She turned to everyone else and managed a smile. It was nice seeing you all. We walked out of the office and toward the restaurant. My mom took out her phone and began texting. Everyone meet at the restaurant today before we open for dinner. ZEM. With that, her phone went crazy. 2 family meetings in 1 week, and this one was upgraded to a Zamora emergency meeting. The last time we'd had a ZEM, Abuela went to the hospital for her 3rd stay in 3 months, and it was decided she wouldn't cook Sunday family dinner anymore. ZEM was not a good sign. I could only imagine Aunt Tootie's hysterics back at La Cocina. I looked at my mom as she scowled. Maybe now we'd break out the machine guns and samurai swords. Chapter 14. What would Abuela do? What would Abuelo do? My mom and I walked into the restaurant and waited for the rest of the family to arrive. We were between the lunch and dinner shifts, so the place was empty except for a few cooks preparing for dinner service. My mom checked her phone a few times and then called my dad. Apparently, he met with Commissioner Garcia, who approved a festival. I know, Robert. I know. Well, what can I tell you? Just come so we can talk about it. Brian was the last to arrive. By the time he got there, La Cocina was filled with loud and angry Zamoras. I told you he was up to no good, Aunt Tootie yelled, pacing around. But you are so trusting, Cotty. He must have been planning this festival all along. It isn't easy to get paperwork approved to do something in the neighborhood, my Uncle Carlos complained. He probably kissed Garcia's hand like he did mine. Engreído. Aunt Tootie waved her hand around so wildly, I thought she was going to knock somebody out. How come we didn't think about throwing a party for the town? Marty asked. It's too late now. What do we do? Asked Yolanda. Vanessa jumped up. Let's hand out informational literature with all the cons of this development clearly outlined. Everyone stopped and turned to her. Huh? Martine asked, scratching his chin. We can make flyers and pamphlets, she repeated, and hand them out to everyone at the festival. What is the point of that, Vanessa? Residents don't get to vote, only the city council. Martine still looked dumbfounded. Don't you know anything? Vanessa said. Individual people don't get to vote, but they do get to voice their concerns at the public forum before the vote. Let's make sure they disapprove loudly, Aunt Tootie said, cupping her hands over her mouth like a megaphone. Wilfredo Pipo won't let us distribute flyers at his festival, Brian said, throwing himself onto one of the lounge chairs in the greeting area. As members of this community, Vanessa argued, we are entitled to distribute promotional materials about our place of business within 300 feet of our property. And the festival is taking place on the lot outside. So, we're allowed to do it. Aunt Tootie jumped up and squeezed Vanessa. My daughter is a genius, aren't you, mi amorcita bella? Mom, Vanessa said, peeling away from Aunt Tootie, you're embarrassing me. This is your family, Vanessa, Aunt Tootie said, squeezing tighter. There is no such thing as embarrassment. The rest of the family nodded at both Aunt Tootie's statement and Vanessa's plan. It was a good idea. Okay, my mom said, we can distribute flyers tomorrow at the festival. We must make the people of Canal Grove understand what's going on, but for now, let's get ready for the dinner shift. Tootie looked at the reservation book and made a face like she just witnessed a flan de coco slip off her plate and splatter onto the floor. Well, we don't have to rush, she said. It's Friday and we barely have any reservations. Where is everyone tonight? Nobody knew why we had so few reservations. I thought about Abuela. Would she call some of her loyal guests? Would she worry like everyone else? Maybe I should go check on Abuela, I said suddenly, wanting to be with her. Good idea, my mom said, but please don't. I know, Mom. I won't talk to her about the restaurant. Thank you, she said, and retreated to the kitchen. I left the restaurant kind of bummed. Why didn't we have a normal number of reservations tonight? Would we be able to make a difference with a few flyers and signs? Or would Wilfredo's festival drown out our voices?